EV-201 was the pivotal phase 2 trial that evaluated Enfortumab Vedotin in treatment refractory metastatic bladder cancer. It had 2 cohorts. Cohort 1, which was the subject of FDA approval in December of 2019, specifically evaluated EV after platinum-based chemotherapy and immunotherapy, so essentially a third-line setting. Previous to EV, there was no approved standard of care. Single-agent chemotherapy was the most reasonable option, but very poor response rates and short survival. So there was clearly an opportunity to test EV. It's an antibody-drug conjugate. It binds Nectin-4. The payload is monomethyl auristatin E. It was proven to be highly active in the phase 1 setting, and so this prompted the phase 2 trial. So the drug was approved for third line in December 2019 on the basis of response rates and durability of responses. This study, Cohort 2, focused on patients who had previously been treated with immunotherapy in the first-line setting for metastatic bladder cancer, were platinum naive for metastatic bladder cancer, and were also cisplatin-ineligible. And this is a unique patient population. These are generally older individuals. They have very poor prognostic features and generally have a short survival and poor tolerance of therapies. And so this drug was tested in that context as well. What we saw in the 89 efficacy evaluable patients, so these are the 89 patients who received at least 1 dose of study treatment. The response rate was 52%, 20% complete responses, 9% of patients discontinued due to progressive disease. And I focus on that number in particular because then when you look at the waterfall plots, you see that 88% of patients had a decrease in their tumors. So what it reminds you of is that, you have a high response rate and a high degree of disease control, and only 9% of patients discontinue due to progressive disease. And so what you see is that there's broad activity for this drug. And in my clinical experience, it can actually rescue patients from their cancer. So you get responses very briskly. Time to response is generally the first scan. Symptomatic improvement. Patients are off of narcotics for bone pain. And this is what we also saw in the, Cohort 1 trial as well. And so, and the median duration of response was 10.9 months. Response rates in the 40% or so range for patients with liver metastases. And these are the patients who have the worst prognosis, short survivals, often in the range of 4 to 6 months. So what you saw was a very active drug across a lot of different, poor prognostic subgroups. And that plus, some of the data that was also presented from EV-301, which is a randomized study of EV versus single-agent chemotherapy in the third-line setting. Basically, the data is fairly strong for EV as an active drug in metastatic bladder cancer, and it's kind of evolving the role for EV, and it's kind of essentially moving it closer and closer to first-line treatment. And there are currently trials that are underway that are testing that concept as well.